in the audience itself. So, just out of curiosity, can I know, as in, what brings you here today? As in, from a non-Muslim perspective.
Actually, during my service time, I met up with this colleague of mine who's also Chinese. He's I think he's head of Islamic banking in Maybank. I think it's Ian. I'm not sure you know him. So he's a very nice guy. He told me a lot about Islamic banking and thought it's pretty interesting. It's something like yeah, so I talked to him quite a lot during the whole week. You know, during service you have nothing to do. So non-stop we just talk about Islamic banking, and he really opened my eyes to the world of Islamic finance. Yeah. So just want to get to learn more.
Interesting. Hi, can I hear your perspective? I'm not targeting, it's just that.
Macam kelas 4 lah, 50%.
I think Prof said something about Muslims, they don't believe in interest rate and making money through interest. And then it was reiterated again to our twin Prof. So we decided to do a project on it, so we wanted to come and learn more.
Okay. It's okay, I want to ask about you. Okay, quite interesting. Okay. So now I'll just do a brief introduction for our guest speaker, Mr. Raj Mohamad. Okay, Mr. Raj Mohamad, he runs an Islamic finance advisory and consultancy firm, which is known as 5 Pillars Private Limited. Okay, this firm is an approved and accredited Islamic financial training. Approved training of Islamic finance for qualification in Southeast Asia. Pardon me.
Should I spell the acronym?
Okay.
No need to use the rest of the passport.
Okay. Okay. So Mr. Raj Mohamad, everyone.
Alright. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Raj, and I run this 5 Pillars company. 5 Pillars. Muslims will know what it means. Non-Muslims come and ask me, what does it mean? And I tend to ask them, what do you think it is? And then they said, who are the other 4? And then the other guy asked, somebody asked, oh, normally, you must be extremely strong company. Normally there are 4 pillars, but you got 5 pillars, whatever. Right? So basically 5 pillars, the 5 tenets the Muslims live by. I won't bore you with that. What we do is basically we put the halal stamp on financial products. Muiz does that for food. You go to McDonald's, you see the green stamp. So we do the same thing, but for financial products. And what it basically means is there are certain investors who wish to align their investment, principles according to what's been laid down in Islam. Right? So what it basically means is, in Islam as a religion, and I'm not here to preach about it, not that I want you to convert you, Islam as a religion kind of like guides you in anything and everything you do. From how does a child talks to a mother, how I conduct myself to my parents, to my friends, to my trade, or even actually, how do I go to the toilet, it's almost a complete science in it. And one of the key part of it is, how do I do business? How do I trade? So Islam has kind of like got a whole science about it, and that's why there's this thing called Islamic finance. Right? Now I won't go through the whole slides, and there are 50 of them, but my objective today is not to get too technical with Islamic finance. I don't want to come here and show off my knowledge in Islamic finance. That's not my job. My objective is to excite you about Islamic finance. My job is for you to look at it. For Muslims, there's a moral obligation, right? As a Muslim, if I've got an Islamic bank here, and if I see a DBS there, or a interest there, then I have a moral obligation to subscribe to Islam. It's simple. Not just like if I see a halal eatery and a non-halal eatery, I'll obviously have to go to a halal eatery. But more importantly, I'd like to share with you the opportunities in Islamic finance. primarily to those who may not be observing the Islamic faith. So my job, and at least I hope today, is to pique your interest and look at it as an opportunity. Interestingly, without beating about the bush, money-making opportunity, career opportunity, right? So if I could do that, I think I would have met my objective, right? Because it's very important, it's very easy to get also mushy about Islamic finance. It's ethical funding, it doesn't cheat people, it doesn't do this and all that. But look, the world is looking at Islamic finance. The key question, why is the word Islamic finance being propped up so often of late? Let us ask a very simple question. When you open the papers and the media, one of the key things that's often portrayed about Islamism is terrorism, radical, a 50-year-old marrying an 8-year-old, those kind of views, right? But of late, what you're seeing here is Islamic finance, right? Why is that so? It's because traditional money markets have failed. Traditional money markets, as Europe and the US, we have realized Europe is sick, still trying to come up, and the US, after the 2007-8 crisis, have failed. And because the oil price has gone up by 400%, I'll show you the chart in a while, and it has gone up by 400%. How does this work? That's the end words? Okay, there you go. I'll just give you a quick market sizing. Let me do that. I think it's too slow, too fast. The market sizing there, it's $1 trillion industry. It's $1 trillion industry for you to go after. You know what? I think I have a feeling that after some time I'm going to not use that. Okay? It's the fastest growing. It's annualized at 20% per annum. Right? And modern Islamic started sometime in the mid-70s, last just 3 decades, have all gone to the Swiss banks and UK. And because of the advent of the oil price that has gone from $35 a barrel to hovering around 130, 140, right? It is phenomenal. It's the new money is looking for investment opportunities. And this market is absolutely growing, as the Financial Services Authority in London says so. Right? So I look at this and I see opportunity for us to participate in some form. While there are, so look at it, 2/3 of Islamic assets today are residing in the Middle East. 2/3 of Islamic assets are in the Middle East, naturally, right? The Middle East countries, Saudi and the rich countries, etc. 2/3 of Islamic client base is in Asia. Are you with me? While 2/3 of the assets are in the Middle East, 2/3 of your clients are in Asia. Right? Indonesia, largest Muslim population, followed very closely by India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc. So you're looking at 2/3 of the base in closer to home, which is in Asia. That's the kind of size that we're looking at. Right? Don't need to go through this. So if you look at this chart, now I've not continued from 2003 onwards, it's simply because naturally it's really just going up. Just to give you a flavor, where it was not too long ago, and where is it today? Right, this is the number of funds. You know, funds that people subscribe to, there's bond fund, there's equity funds. So people are now coming up with a lot more Sharia compliant, which is the word to try and dictate and say Islamic compliant funds. So they are again growing at amazing speeds, right? In 2005, we did an analysis because that's when we saw the price of oil really shooting up. We took the top 10 best performing stock markets in the world, right? Top 10 best performing stock markets in the world. If you realize this, and this is the numbers, apart from Colombia and Russia, the rest speaks for itself. So see where this money is going into. So what contributed to it? What contributed to it? right? We cannot ignore 9/11. Almost threefold price in the oil, 100% return Middle East and Gulf markets, and etc. Now, why 9/11? See, when the 9/11 happened, a lot of things happened in the financial markets. When Muslims were trying to transfer funds from one part to another, their funds were scrutinized. They went through a lot of hassle. There were stories about funding terrorism. They had to go through a lot more, declaration and whatnot. And then it frustrated the markets, and you know what they said? You know what? Let's put our money back into our own economy. So there was flow back into the Middle East. Let's go back into Sharia investments. So these things kind of like fed into it, and then when there was a demand, and slowly we saw a huge number of funds coming up. So these are the factors that kind of like fed and contributed to the advent of Islamic finance. Right? Now, earlier, we had, I think, the young lady over there who said Islamic finance, and someone says, what is the word you use? They don't, you say something with interest. What is the word you use? Can you remember?
Muslims, they don't believe in money to interest.
Okay, good. Now I think that's the thing that kind of like stands out. I want to go and ask. Forget about this. I want to talk about this very important element. When you ask what is Sharia compliant, this is the answers you get. Am I correct? Can you imagine your body language? A friend over here come to me and say, Raj, what is Islamic finance? Your body language says, what is interest? And if I were the proponent of Islamic finance, can I say, oh, you can't do interest, you can't do this, you can't do derivatives, you can't do futures, you cannot do, you cannot do, you cannot do. Now the word no and can't is a very negative connotation. I should be selling Islamic finance, no. But now I'm shutting it. His body language says, what is, and I am. Now why I'm saying this is because this is the common definition given by almost every other Islamic finance proponents, the one advocates. This is the explanation they give. Right? Now, what is Islamic finance? Essence is basically, so people come and ask me, so what would you define Islamic finance as? We had a real case where somebody walked into our door and said, Raj, tell me what's Islamic finance. We said, we allow anything under the sun except things that are bad for you, bad for the human or the community or the population, and bad for the environment. End of story. That is Islamic finance. So somebody looks at me and say, yeah, but you guys says gambling. Then I showed to him Singapore built 2 casinos and 7 centers to treat gamblers. Nothing Islamic about it. And then they put a poster of when of alcohol, and if you drive, don't drink. If you drive, don't drive. Nothing Islamic about it, right? And they say, yeah, but derivatives. And I say, look, in Singapore had a crisis. DBS Bank, they sold Series 5 notes. Right? There was this young man in a wheelchair, just got his money of insurance payout. He was going to put the money in his wheelchair and put it to fixed deposit. A young lady comes and said, Uncle, come here. Why don't you buy this? Pays you 5%. 5 times more than the fixed deposit. He put the money into that. He lost everything. He lost everything. It was a derivative product which he didn't understand. And if you look at the papers during that time, MAS gave only one statement. He directed all the banks and said, do the right thing. Word for word, verbatim. This is what MAS said. Do the right thing. So Hong Leong Bank went around and said, you know what, all who invested in this product, get your money back. DBS says those who do not, the illiterates and the elderly will get their money back. Right? So if you look at it, there isn't something that's abnormal about Islamic finance. It just says listen, if somebody gives you money, just be responsible for that investment. That's the philosophy. Alright? So if you look at any one of these that Islamic Finance trying to explain, and I think, honestly speaking, if I remove the word Islamic and put any other religion there, I think almost everyone will agree with me. If I said Buddhist investment, I think they would agree with not allowing derivatives and gambling and alcohol, I think. The Vatican City, I'm sure, would not invest in Guinness. Right? So if you look at it from that point of view, we are not trying to come and make investment difficult for you. That's not the objective. It just says that, if you take $10, give him $10 worth of market value of a product, period, end of story. Right? That brings us to the element of interest. Right? So what is this interest thingy that you guys can't dabble in? Now, Islamic Finance recognizes time value of money. It does, and there are products. Alright? The short-term loan product that is whereby you get at spot price you pay one, and then if you pay it over a delayed period of time, there is a markup to the original value. Alright? Because it recognizes time value of money. So a simple way I explained about interest versus non-Islamic banking is this. The Quran, as much as the Bible and any other, I think, faith literatures, condemn usury. They do. They all condemn usury. What is usury by definition is excessive charge money on money. That's all. So don't accept. See, let's just imagine you're an entrepreneur. Right? You're an entrepreneur, you come to the bank and they say, listen, I need a bit of money to start my business. So what does the bank do? It takes through your business proposal. If it likes your business proposal, it believes in it, the bank would advance you some money. Are we all okay so far? So the bank gives you a bit of money, you start your business. Let's say you're in the IT business. Okay, so there you are, nice entrepreneur, hoping the business runs and plays out the way you have envisaged it to. Right? Because you have put business plans so that with this amount of money, I'm going to get this much of cash flow to make the bank payment out and make a profit that much. That's a game plan. Right? Unfortunately, market doesn't go the way you like. So what happens is if you invested the money from the bank knocks on your door and says, it's time to pay your dues. You say, I've got a bit of cash flow. The bank says, no problem, I'm going to charge you interest on interest. If you don't know what I'm talking about, try missing your 1 month credit card bill. Right? And then the bank says, okay, after interest and interest, you say, I still have a bit of a cash flow. Who are you? You are an entrepreneur, good in what you do. And then this thing starts becoming a burden. Then the bank comes to you and charges you penalty, and then it charges you legal fees. Yes or no? Am I saying anything outrageous? Correct? So when it all comes into it, now, at some point, if you go, this is what typically happens. So if you say, I can't take it anymore, so you go to the bank and say, give me a repayment plan. And the bank may, or the bank may not. So they may slap you with this heavy bill, and what happens in the end is that you may be made bankrupt. Alright? I'm just giving you a pretty extreme example. Now let's go over to the Islamic bank. So here you come to us, you give us, so you look at the IC, a Muslim will give you money. No way. It doesn't work that way. Sorry. The business has to work. Because we, the investors, if it's a bank, it's a custodian of its shareholders' funds. I, as an investor, has to make sure I put the money in the right investment. So if you've got an investment with a huge number of pothole in it, the bank, Islamic bank or not, would reject it. Sorry. Just because the ICC is Muslim and he says Salam Alaikum in the beginning, you call me brother, it doesn't work that way. Okay, you've got to understand that. Huh? So they have to now look at the business proposal, and so should they look at it and they like it, what they would do is they would now become a partner in the business. That's what we call profit sharing. Because if I believe in your cash flow, I'm now becoming your partner in it. So now what happens in a partner's case versus the first case? If you are a partner with me in the business, when you have a bit of a problem, the relationship changes. As a partner, I don't push you down because I have my money with you. I'm going to try and do to get you up. Islamic finance allows me to charge penalty. Islamic finance allows me to charge the cost of delayed payment. It does. It does. Because we are responsible for the shareholders' funds. And you have an obligation to pay us. But we don't make money out of your penalties. Right? So that is the philosophy behind Islamic finance. And believe me, Islamic finance is also grappling with what's happening in the financial markets. We are relying on the religious sources. So if you can't go to the Quran and look at page 845, the chapter on derivatives, it doesn't work. So here we are grappling, and Islamic finance is also grappling. How do we respond to the markets? Right? So if you look at it, there's huge opportunities. And what are the opportunities about? The opportunity is about the 2/3 of funds that's out in the Middle East. The opportunity is about Singapore as a financial center. You would carry Singapore flag and say that we can make structured products for you. Right? So that's just the basic premises of Islamic finance. And Islamic finance, you find, but the problem is you've got these Arabic names coming in. Do I have to learn Arabic? Right? I mean, you walk to me and then you say, hey, so what have you got in fixed deposit equivalent? And I say, wow, I've got this fantastic commodity murabaha for you. Okay. What's that all about? Right? Because murabaha means cost plus and mudaraba means investment. I can guarantee you can't say that 5 times in a row. Right? But why are these terminologies used? They are used because these are, you see, you've got the scholars panel. You've got people who are able to decipher and how to respond. Right? Because it's not by one individual. So they have a school of scholars. Like for example, the equity financing, stock market, is a rather new phenomenon. Because in the past, people have abused stock market, right? Because I've got guys come in and say, is playing the stock market halal? Then I say, how can I play the stock market? Is it permissible in Islamic finance? I say, you can't play the stock market. You can invest in stock market, you can't play in it. It's not a playground. You have picture. So until recently, people do not understand, because what kind of news do we get on the stock market? I put in $1 today, made 10 yesterday. But that's not investment, right? You buy Google because you believe in its business strategy and you believe in its cash flow, and that's why you invest in the stock market. So people who doesn't understand have seen it, and even today, you have got individuals who looked at equity financing or stock markets as impermissible, prevalent, right? So we are here educating them. So what the scholars did is say, we need to do something, right? We need to do something. So they come together and they now made a science of how to invest in the stock market, right? And it's very simple science, Why did they do that? Because if they don't do that, Muslim investors, so they've come up and they've said, okay, this is how you will invest in the equity market. Or how do we do that? Okay, find a company that's not overtly leveraged. Right? If you have got heavy debt, what does it mean? You're going to run a lot faster to service the debt rather than your business. So stay away from companies that has got high leverage. And that's very simple science. Take all your liabilities, divide that about the market cap, and the stream. And then stay away from companies that's hoarding cash. So if you're a listed company, what is your job? Your job is to give good returns to your investors. That's your job if you're a listed company. If you're a private company, you hoard cash, nobody cares. But if you're a listed company, they say don't hoard cash. Why? You can, what the definition hoard meaning that you just have huge cash balances, because if you have huge cash balances, it is not efficient use of funds, isn't it? So they say either put it back into the business and grow the business and give returns, or return it back to the shareholders as dividends. So there are few signs that they've done, and now that's why you find a huge number of fund growth in the equity side. So they have come up with those kind of sciences, and now we are seeing a lot more products coming through, but not good enough, not fast enough, right? And then come the question is, okay, all sounds nice. Now, who calls it compliant? You don't have a pope, right? We don't have a single source that puts the stamps and say compliant, because it's a very open field, right? So, if you go into Google and try the word Sharia and find a product, one guy is going to say it's compliant, another guy sitting in some obscure corner is going to call non-compliant. Then you are confused. What's happening, right? So look at it this way. I tell my clients, if you understand the plays in the financial markets, you have got the fund manager who buys and who picks the right investment. You've got obviously the investors, and then within the fund management company you've got the analyst. The guy's going to write a report and say, hey, which company is makes the calls, and then you've got the risk manager who ensures that every time you are exposed, you're not overly exposed, and you don't put all the eggs in one basket. And then you've got this chap called the compliance person, right? The compliance will make sure that the fund manager doesn't step out of what is the mandate of the company. So for example, if this is let's call it a commodity investment specialist, right? If you're a commodity investment specialist, that's what you've been flagging yourself as, that's why you go out there and collect the money. It's a compliance manager's job to ensure you stay within only the commodity and you don't go into property, right? So look at Islamic finance as a mandate. Right? What is a mandate? And a mandate from whom? Mandate from the guy who signs the fattest check. Right? So look at it this way. You're a smart cookie, and then you're going to come to Middle East and see the sheikh. Right? So you come to me, and then you say, sir, I've got a Sharia compliant product. Then the guy's asking you, fine. So who's calling it Sharia compliant? Because I'm not an expert. All I need to know is when I invest, I'm answerable to God, that I've done it, my due diligence. My due diligence is to ask you, who's calling it compliant? And then you say, okay, I've got these 3 scholars who is calling it compliant, and this is what I will follow. Correct? Then, if I'm happy with the names, and if I'm happy with the credentials, then I say, fine, here's my check, here's a $10 million, go to invest. So what has happened? I have now, because when you invest, there's this 5 prints, right? This is what I'm going to do, this is what I will do. When you pay out, when you can come out and liquidate and blah, 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 and whatever stuff. So you give the mandate, and the mandate says, I'll follow all these things. All right? And then he's happy with the guys who are signing off. So let's take, for example, I'm an IT specialist, IT company is my specialist. So I'm going to invest in Twitter when it goes IPO, Facebook, Google, name it, and I'm there. Correct? So my scholars have okayed these companies as compliant based on the parameters I told you earlier. Correct? Gone. Then somebody, some obscure corner with a beard this big and a turban this big, is going to write a report and say, I don't think Microsoft is compliant because I saw someone watching pornography using Microsoft. And you can, what's happening? What's happening? Right? Because what did I do? The investor have come to your company, or you have gone to him and sold him that I've got a Sharia compliant product. Are you all clear? And then I have collected the money because the investor is very happy with how I am going to be managing it as compliant. Because I've got 3 very well-known scholars list. Right? I mean, if you go do a Google, you'll find that, you know. Because in every product, there'll be a panel of scholars. So you could find, every time you see something that says Islamic financial product or Sharia compliant product, there will always be a column somewhere that says the Sharia panel. So you click on it, you'll find names. right? So if I am the guy who's giving it away, I'm happy with it, the buck stops there. All right? Because you don't need to have a universal standard in Islamic finance. You don't, right? Very simple example. In Singapore, if I want to consume Islamic food, can I do that easily? Yes or no?
Yep.
I can, right? Great. If I go to China, do you reckon I'll have the same facilities? Will I or not?
Nope.
Right? Now, if I go into a vegetarian restaurant and if I eat there, am I committing a crime? Because there's no halal stand there. What do y'all think? No, right? So that's how you should see it. Right? So here, there isn't a global stamping. So it is the mandate given by the scholar. So what happens here is simply like this. The Islamic Finance says, we don't want to promote you eating impure meat. We don't want we don't want to promote pornography, adult entertainment, derivatives, gambling, the whole works. You know, it's in there, right? So because we don't want to promote you doing it, we don't want to invest in it. So every time I get returns out of those kind of activities, Islamic Finance says, donate it away. That's called the cleansing process. It's a cleansing process. So a very simple example will be, I am a REIT. You know what's a REIT? Everybody knows what's a REIT? It's a real estate investment trust. Right? What's the job of a REIT? The job of a REIT is to collect money from investors, buy properties, lease it out, take the money, the rental income, deduct the expenses in doing this business of collecting money and rental and maintenance, and then distribute each one of you according to your unit. That's what the REIT does, right? So first I'll collect all the money from you, and I'll buy properties. And then I lease it out, I get tenants, and they are going to pay me rent, and I'll deduct my operation costs, 5%, 10%, whatever, allow, right? The residual amount I give back to you on a quarterly basis. That's what REIT does. Now, in one corner, or one unit, I have a guy who stores wine. Right? I can't invest in Marina Bay. Definitely not, right? Huge tenants, casinos. Right? So I wouldn't. But I could go into an industrial store, a warehouse that stores fruits, whatever. And then in one corner, I've got a small rental from a guy who's storing wine. Now, just because a whiteboard there's a black dot doesn't mean it all becomes non-showing. So the scholar says, go ahead, invest in it, no problem, but just don't give me the wine guy's rental income. I don't want to benefit from it. Simple. Right? So, the question somebody asks is, oh, how can that be? If I have got a guy who's going to pay me a fat rental, 20% above market price, are you saying that I can't rent it out? Somebody can look at it that way, right? It's detrimental to me. Look, first of all, nobody is forcing you to become Sharia compliant. Nobody is forcing anyone to become Sharia compliant. If somebody goes out there and says, I want to become a Sharia compliant REIT, he made it for his business reasons. He believes he can raise money from the Muslim investors. It can be conventional, but somebody has made a business decision to go and label themselves as Islamic. Why? Because there are lots of funds that we could tap from Islamic markets. So when you have decided to go Islamic, it's detrimental of you to rent it out to guys who are doing non-Islamic activities, right? Because that income is given away. So it's a leakage. So it only makes sense for you to have as many compliant tenants, right? So it's basically, you know, I have got people come in and say, and there was a very arrogant hedge fund manager. I went to try and pitch my, he just said, you know what, you guys change goalposts always. Every time you guys change the goalposts. I said, what exactly do you mean by that? You change rules. I said, okay, what exactly do you mean by that? No? So he couldn't give me. So what happens is mistakes, because in the internet, just like a fishing net, catches rubbish as much as catches fish. So people read, because everyone is an expert in the internet. Right? You create a blog, you write some nice literature, and people tend to read it. So he read that particular transaction, and then when we explained to him, I said, what are you trying to invest in? Oh, you know, I want to invest in Islamic stocks, but you say I can't do this in Singapore. So I said, okay, let's try and do this very simple maths, right? What can I not invest in? I can't invest in banks and insurance companies, correct? So I looked at the 400 or 500 companies listed in the stock market. How many banks have we got listed? UOB, OCBC. Out of the 4 or 500. How many insurance companies? Let's throw in Great Eastern. How many alcohol companies? Asia Breweries, maybe Chang. Who else? I've got Genting. So look, you've got hundreds of them, but we tend to focus on a little bit and make so much noise in it. Opportunities galore. So people tend to, that's why I like this slide, because the no stands out a lot louder, because it's easy to sound like a real expert. Oh, you can't do this, you can't. No, you can't. No. You ask them why. Right? So we find that as 5 pillars, I'm not selling my company because I don't think you're my clients. 5 pillars tend to sell Islamic finance very differently. All right? We sell it as opportunity. We sell it as making money. All right? And I'm talking from my own experience. I used to work in conventional banks, risk management, private banking, right? And it has given me immense knowledge. In fact, I've gained so much by knowing what not to do by being in the conventional market and why not to do. Because I have seen a tycoon where my white, because of colonial hangovers, my Dutch boss went down to the basement car park to pick up, personally invite a Hong Kong tycoon up for coffee in his room. And when the market went against him, an assistant of an assistant called up this tycoon and said, when are you topping up? So I've seen, the whole game. So I was in conventional banking most of my life. Then I went to work for Bloomberg. And when I was in Bloomberg, Islamic Finance started to get a bit of momentum. And then one day my Scottish boss came to me and said, hey, you've got Mohamad in your name, go run with it. Right? So I could have said, oh, I don't know. Or in the land of the blind, one eye guy is the king. So the word Mohamad in it, I took it and I learned. And the little that I learned, I spoke and I got to learn. And I spoke very well with the little that I know. And then I realized that, slowly, as I got more and more deep into it, I realized everyone else. There was this conference I went to. Sitting in front of me was UBS, Credit Suisse, Lehman Brothers then, right? And the big investment banks. And then stood up a scholar. He stood up, he had a chart there, and there is a verse in the Holy Quran, in the very first chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, for those of you who know, that talks about the sin and the punishment for dabbling in interest-based transactions. Right? You will burn in hell. The investment bankers. So imagine now a young friend over here working for Merrill Lynch. He come here to understand how Merrill Lynch can now structure Islamic products and service them. And you've got this mullah telling him, you will burn in hell. And I literally saw them going like that. Right? So I was so glad because my competitors are doing that. Right? So we went out there and we spoke like this. And the guys, are you serious? What you're saying is correct. Are you saying that you can invest in everything except what you say is bad for human environment? I say, yeah, prove me wrong. And everything that we have done that is gone. In fact, Islamic finance has become more profitable for them. It's become more profitable for them. And what are the other opportunities? there are very few products in the markets today. There aren't enough research done, there aren't enough innovation done in Islamic finance. And the challenge is because you got to understand the equation Islamic, who are the players in it, the process of it, all right? Now you've got the money managers in one corner, the guys who manage the money. And then at the other corner, we've got the scholars whose stamp they require. Right? And interestingly, both of them can make lots of money together, but individually they cannot. Because the money manager cannot tap the Middle East market, and Middle East market cannot make use of these money managers. And there is a lack of understanding of financial products by the scholars. There are very few who understand both conventional and Islamic finance. And then on this side, so in this equation, who makes the most money? You guys. Why? Because you have the ability to look at the product and say, wait a minute, if I make a couple of tweaks on this product, it becomes compliant. And it's not rocket science. Let me give you a very simple example. You all have heard of hedge fund, have you not? You all heard of hedge funds? Just to share a little that I know of hedge funds. Hedge funds are guys who don't work in the mainstream, right? They think they are very smart guys. They come out there, they kind of like conjure up something, and they say, I can make more money for you. And they do sometimes. And the common strategy used by hedge fund is what? Beautiful. Long short strategy. They would go on companies that they believe will make money for them. They'll go and buy those companies. Why? Because the price should rise. Are we correct? And then they short companies that they believe are overpriced because they would sell it. Shorting means to sell something you don't own today. So you borrow the stocks. Right? If you think Facebook is overpriced, I'm not asking you to sell. If you believe Facebook is overpriced, you borrow Facebook and you sell it in the market. And then when it falls, you buy at a lower price and make the margin. Right? So that is a typical strategy by hedge fund managers. Right? So what they do is that if the market goes, if the long doesn't go high, and if it falls, at least they make both ways. So that's where the word hedge comes in. They hedge their positions.
Raj, you want to join up?
Sorry?
You want to join up for
You
them?
think so? Okay. Just ask guys, huh? I'm not gonna eat you up. Okay. So you buy certain stocks at certain price because you think it goes up. Correct? It's a basket of stocks, right? So Google, Facebook. So you buy a list of 10 stocks, right? Whatever, right? 10 stocks. You buy in T0, and then maybe 3, whatever. Based on your analysis, research, fundamental chartist, whatever you call that, you believe these lists of stocks will be there at some point of time. All right? This is called long position. Okay? And then, what they do next is that they would sell companies that they think are overpriced. So they'll say Ford, Apple, with their plastic, whatever it is, right? All those companies, they believe that they are overpriced. So they will do the inverse, right? So what they will do is they will take that list of stock and they will sell it here, right? Hoping that that list of stocks will go down. They believe Apple is overpriced today. 3 months down the road, I think the price will not be where it is. It will be 20% down. Samsung could be, I don't know, just, right? The 10 stock. So what they're trying to do here is to mitigate the price movements in here and ensure that they're not losing it. Because what happens if the price doesn't go up here? What if the price falls here? If the market falls, what they do? So the difference between the prices that they sold, so it's sold, so they get cash. And then they will buy it when the markets have dropped. Am I clear? Who's not clear? Please raise your hand. Don't be afraid. I can go through this like, no? You can, this long, easy, right? Long part is easy. Selling a stock which you don't own but believing it's overpriced. So let's say Facebook, what is yesterday, 42, 43, something along that line. I think Facebook is overpriced. I think it's a $30 stock. So what they do is that they will sell Facebook. Do you have Facebook? You don't. So you'll borrow from the market. There are people who just do nothing but just borrowing and lending on stocks. So they'll borrow from the market Facebook stocks and they would sell it today. When they sell stocks today, what do you get? Cash. Okay? So let's say you have $1 million here. Cash, right? What did you do? You sell Facebooks and the likes off because you think it's overpriced. 3 months down the road, Facebook dropped to $30 because you thought, based on that analysis, this company is overpriced. Right? So 3 months down the road, what do? You drop, you buy it then. And let's say you pay now $900,000 to buy it because low price. You got cash 1 million there, right? And then when you buy only 900,000, right? In between you make 100,000. Am I clear there?
Mm-hmm.
That's how hedge fund managers make money. Just one of the strategies. There are hundreds of other strategies, right? So we go to this hedge fund manager. What does Islam say? Islam says, or Islamic Finance rather says, that you cannot sell what you can't own, or which you don't own rather. Right? I mean, if you don't have the Facebook, hello, you can't. Right? So that's what Islamic Finance is. So how can Islamic Finance participate in this? We say, just take a look at your long book. We allow this, didn't we? You're buying this because you believe it's there. Right? So we say, take your long book, just sieve out those stocks that are compliant, and give a Sharia compliance product.
Or you could enter into protected puts as well. That's a way to do Islamic Finance.
Exactly.
It's halal.
Right?
Protective put just means you buy the long, you buy the stock of the company, simultaneously you buy a put option on the stock as well. So in the future, if your stock price goes down, you just exercise the option to put and you sell it. So that's Islamic because you own the asset of Apple and you also own the put option on Apple. So you own the asset and you own the option to sell the asset at a lower price.
Yeah? So there are methods. For example, I think I've got a slide that's quite interesting that tells you, look, yeah, you gotta go? Okay. It's Monday, cheers. Right? So I'm not gonna bother you with all these things. What are the things they don't want? Garar means deception. I thought this would be an interesting slide, the misconceptions about Islamic finance. Alright, obviously, it's for everyone. People say, hey, so your fund manager must be Muslim, no need. None of those things, prohibits profiting, no. Make tons of money, go. There's no harm. Right? And all ministers may subscribe, nope. Do you know Citibank? I've heard of that? Yeah? Citibank's, the largest individual shareholder, anybody knows him? Not me. The guy's name is Prince Al-Walid Al-Talal. Heard of him?
Yeah, sorry, Prince.
Yeah, you know who is he? He's the nephew of the Guardian of Makkah. Right? So let's not get all, So the nephew of the king of Saudi, he invested Citibank, the icon of interest. That's a business decision. I'm not here to put a fatwa on him. But what I'm saying is that, all Middle Easterns do not. And the product, listen, if I've got an invitation from China to go and do Islamic finance there, I'll immediately go and enroll in a Mandarin class. Similarly, if you've got a fat sheikh there who's going to sign your commission, actually you'll learn Arabic. Simple as that. So you don't need this, right? But how am I going to talk? How am I going to get that Middle Eastern guy to talk to me or listen to me? I go to him, ahlan wa sahlan, here he is, I've got a musharaka problem. Simple. It's all marketing. Islamic finance doesn't need this stuff, right? So people do that for purely for marketing reasons, right? So the salient features are I'm going to end with this because I told him to dedicate a lot of time for Q&A, hoping you would ask Q&A because I think that's where your thoughts are. So it's every form of trade and business are permitted, except things that are detrimental. You want to protect the bank as much as the man on the street. Please don't think that we are here only to save you. It has to protect the bank because the bank has obligations to shareholders. They are trustees of the funds of you and I who put money in the POSB bank. Right? So when Islamic Finance says, please make sure, that it's very clear, the contracts are written clearly, etc. Source of fund has never been a problem. Source of fund has never been an issue. Deployment of fund is. So in other words, tomorrow, for some reason, if Tiger Breweries come to us and say, I want to raise Islamic money, we cannot say no to them. Can you imagine Tiger Breweries come to us and say, I want to build a school, nursery, for the children of my employees to be, right? And I want to do that in a Sharia compliant way. Absolutely yes, but obviously it will have a frown. Can you imagine I'm from Tiger Breweries and I brew beers? Marketing wise it wouldn't jive. So source of fund has never been an issue. In other words, tomorrow Genting and Marina Bay says, can you go and buy an Islamic fund? The fund manager is happy to take the money. Okay, it's where you deployment, use of money is where we are careful about. So be mindful of that, right? Right. I forgot to say one thing. In the first case where the conventional fund entrepreneur case, and then he went to the Islamic bank, right? People think that when loans get bad in Islamic finance, we raise our hands to God, ask for divine intervention. No. Look at conventional bank. What would they do? They'll send you letter after letter after letter. At the end of the day, until you go bankrupt. You all know banks have got this thing called NPL, right? Non-performing loans. Loan provision. Every bank will look at all their bad debts and they'll provide a bit of money for that to write off bad debts. All banks do that, right? And if there are no bad debts, they put it back to profit and etc. Right? So conventional banks already have that provision. So don't look at Islamic bank and say that we forgive your loan as something that's bad for the bank. You understand? Similarly, Islamic banks would do utmost to get funds from you, including legal, because we have to do everything we can to, again, like I said, the shareholders and trustees funds. So in both cases, they do forgive loans, though in different ways, right? I think I'm going to just show you one last slide, and I'm going to open to, just bear with this fast computer. There's this slide that says, which I will show you, Islamic finance has an equivalent of almost every product that's out in the market today. Every product that's in the market today, Islamic finance has a solution. Mortgage financing, there is credit card, hedging tool, risk management tool, bonds, everything, right? It's a slide that I did. Okay, here we are. So if you look at it, it's just in the name. So we have got current account deposits. These are I would call it methodologies. It's not product name. Mudaraba, for example, is a name used for investment contract. These are contract names, Arabic contract names. So the Mudaraba stands for the word Mudarib, is a person who manages money, right? Musharaka is a partnership contract. So everything that's available in the conventional markets today, Islamic finance has an equivalent. So if somebody could ask, yes, Mr. Raj, but we don't have mortgage financing in Singapore. Islamic finance. Why we don't have it in certain jurisdictions is because their financial framework and tax purposes and recognition are the things that, sometimes it has to be passed in the parliament. So these are the little, I would say, hurdles, man-made hurdles. It's not Islamic made. For example, all the contracts in HDB mortgage, calls return on capital as interest. All right? And then in Islamic finance, if it's cost of fund, or if it's cost plus, then they say, I cannot recognize these terminologies. For a very simple example, in India, the constitution defines bank as one who takes and gives interest on capital. So if you are a bank, constitution, that's how it's defined. Today they cannot introduce Islamic bank in India because constitution, they got to change the constitution to allow Islamic bank in India. Because the constitution says interest. You get what I mean? And when the contracts becomes profit sharing and other terminologies, they say, big headache, got to go to parliament. And every time it gets to parliament, it gets politicized. Politics gets into play. Right? So somebody asked me this question, okay, you talk a lot. Could Islamic finance save the crisis? 2007-8. What do you all think?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, you want to tell me why?
That's because I think a lot of investors were a bit confused with terminology. The Ali Jara, for example,
Okay,
a lot of them were actually asset-based rather than asset-backed.
okay.
So people think, okay, I'm actually getting my SPV is actually getting a rental income from an asset, but the asset is actually only a beneficial ownership of the asset.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people, a lot of even institutional investors, a lot of them actually misguided by the fact that it was
Sorry,
called Ali
brother.
Jara.
Let me repeat the question again. 2007-2008 financial crisis that stemmed from the United States. Do you think Islamic finance could have saved? So I'm trying to look at the cost of the crisis versus Islamic principles. I'm arguing, I'm not giving you an answer, I'm just bringing it as an argument. What do you think? So can you tell me what caused the crisis? Anything? Subprime?
Bad lending.
Subprime?
Yes.
One? Agree? Anything else? Derivatives? Maybe? CDOs? CDS? Credit default swap? Anything else? Proprietary trading? Subprime. What is subprime? Fire away.
Those people who people think can pay up.
Beautiful. So starting is already wrong. Right? Would that contract pass Islamic finance? I asked. They would not. We can't afford, we can't sell them. So we could have, number one. Alright? I don't know if any one of you saw what's the Goldman Sachs guy's name? Something Goldfink or something.
Like,
Right? The bald headed guy. You all saw that his testimony in front of this one? Go watch it, it's really like Hollywood. It's amazing, right? And there was another guy who found all the loopholes. So he said, please turn to this particular page. It's an email from the sales guys. Right? To say, an email from the product development guys to the sales guys. This is a whole bunch of, you know what I mean? Yeah. Don't sell. Within, from Goldman to Goldman. It's not like a Merrill's Goldman. So, what I think is, I don't think we could have fully, but the damage could have been lesser. That's my take on it. Because when I discuss and I look at it, every one of the contracts that has gone through would not have passed through a Sharia scholar. Okay? So I think the damage could be lesser, if not, it's very devastating. Right? You know how the DBS 5 series, most people lost the money? Anyone here knows? Anyone care to share the rest of the class? Basically, this is what happens, right? Guy queue up to sell, put the money in the fixed deposit, pretty girl comes and says, "Uncle, I give you this nice kettle. Why don't you buy this product?" The guy says, "What does this do?" "Oh, you know, if you put the money in it, you get 5%, 5 times more than the fixed deposit." And uncle asks, "Okay, so what are the conditions?" "Oh, don't worry. You know, if these companies go bankrupt, then you don't get the money, but Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Lehman Brothers, can or not?" And uncle say, "Lehman, what's this Lehman?" He's a 180-year-old, you know, 20 times bigger than DBS Bank. This in the papers, I'm not making it up. The uncle actually said in his testimony, let us say 20 times bigger than DBS Bank. How to go flat? So CDS works like this. They take a bet on some companies, saying that none of them would go bankrupt. If any one of them go bankrupt, any one out of the 5 basket, anyone go bankrupt, you get nothing. It's a bet. CDS are not allowed in Sharia anyway. So that's how people. So we believe. If you see Wall Street too, go see that, and when they introduced Michael Douglas the first time, he makes an excellent speech, right? I mean, that's a very good, because he goes on, he rattles, you know, CDO, CDS, VWAP, this, that, left, right. He said only 75 people in the world who understand what exactly this means. And it's true, because the CEO of Goldman Sachs could not explain what this product is all about. People didn't understand. So I think Islamic Finance has a great opportunity to, what would I say, to play a very significant role in the financial demographics, right? You are the ones who could play a very important role in it. And that role is the bridge that's currently hugely missing between the Sharia scholars and the conventional guys, right? Look at this hedge fund example, right? What is the hedge? I always look at what motivates the individual, and that's how I put my sales speech, right? I need to know what motivates you, and I got to position my sales into him. So if I go to this guy, I give him my card. "Sir, I'm from Islamic Finance. Here, let me sell it." And he said, "Thanks, no thanks, bugger off." You tell me that. And this is a real story. I went into a Swiss bank, and I did some research on this company, and I told this guy, "I like your fund. I like the returns because they're public information." Then I said, "I'd like to know more. I'm from Islamic Finance industry." All right? And I said, "Okay, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, you know, I've got investors who are looking for Islamic Finance products." Then I said, "Tell me about your product." You all heard of the term buy side, sell side? Right? Buy side are the guys with the money, sell side are the guys who are insurance agents. Actually, the guys who need the money. Right? So it is actually a very good dynamic play. Right? I mean, if you imagine, so the buy side always would be like aloof and, "Yeah, what do you want?" kind of thing, right? The sell side is, sir, this kind of thing. So I went there. First, he was the buy side, right? I knocked on, I asked for his appointment. He was the buy side, I'm the sell side. So with a single statement, I flipped the whole thing. I just said, "I have investors, I like your product, tell me about it." He became a sell side. He was now selling me his products. So I asked him very simple questions. A, tell me about your investors. "Oh, this is an Asian-centric product, we have a lot of Asian investors." "Great. Do you have US investors?" So yeah, for some risk diversification, we have some US institutions investing. "Europe? Oh yeah, we have some of them." "What about Middle East?" Very interesting. I said, "What about Middle East?" His reply, "We are not Sharia compliant." I asked him, "Have you got Middle East investors?" But he read it as he has to be Islamic to send to Middle East. And he doesn't have to. That's how the market perceives. So he said, "Sorry, we are not Sharia compliant." I said, "Pity, we wish it was. I gotta go." He said, wait, hold your horses. What is